Study Session 7: Endocrine Glands and Behavior. Introduction. In this study session, you will examine endocrine glands and how they influence behavior. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Identify the endocrine glands in human beings. 2. Mention the functions of each of the endocrine glands. And 3. Highlight conditions of oversecretion and undersecretion of hormones of the endocrine glands. The endocrine system. The endocrine system, in association with the nervous system and the immune system, regulates the body's internal activities and the body's interactions with the external environment to preserve the internal environment. This control system permits the prime functions of living organisms, growth, development, and reproduction, to proceed in an orderly, stable fashion. It is exquisitely self-regulating, so that any disruption of the normal internal environment by internal or external events is resisted by powerful countermeasures. When this resistance is overcome, illness ensues. Each endocrine gland also has a rich supply of blood vessels. This is important not only because nutrients are delivered to the gland by the blood vessels, but also because the gland cells that line these vessels are able to detect serum levels of specific hormones or other substances that directly affect the synthesis and secretion of the hormones the gland produces. In addition to traditional endocrine cells, specially modified nerve cells within the nervous system secrete important hormones into the blood. These special nerve cells are called neurosecretory cells, and their secretions are termed neurohormones, to distinguish them from hormones produced by traditional endocrine cells. Neurohormones are stored in the terminals of neurosecretory cells and are released into the bloodstream upon stimulation of the cells. This is a group of ductless glands that regulate body processes by secreting chemical substances called hormones. Hormones act on nearby tissues or are carried in the bloodstream to act on specific target organs and distant tissues. It is important to distinguish between an endocrine gland, which discharges hormones into the bloodstream, and an exocrine gland, which secretes substances through a duct opening in a gland onto an external or internal body surface. Salivary glands and sweat glands are examples of exocrine glands. Both saliva, secreted by the salivary gland, and sweat, secreted by the sweat gland, act on local tissues near the duct openings. In contrast, the hormones secreted by endocrine glands are carried by the circulation to exert their actions on tissues remote from the site of their secretion. Most hormones are one of two types: protein hormones, including peptides and modified amino acids, or steroid hormones. The majority of hormones are protein hormones. They are highly soluble in water and can be transported readily through the blood. When initially synthesized within the cell, protein hormones are contained within large biologically inactive molecules called prohormones. An enzyme splits the inactive portion from the active portion of the prohormones, thereby forming the active hormone that is then released from the cell into the blood. There are fewer steroid hormones than protein hormones, and all steroid hormones are synthesized from the precursor molecule cholesterol. These hormones and a few of the protein hormones circulate in the blood both as hormones that is free and as hormones that is bound to specific proteins. It is the free, unbound hormones that has access to tissues to exert hormonal activity. Hormones act on their target tissues by binding to and activating specific molecules called receptors. Receptors are found on the surface of target cells in the case of proteins and peptide hormones, or they are found within the cytoplasm or nuclei of target cells in the case of steroid hormones and thyroid hormones. Each receptor has a strong, highly specific affinity or attraction for a particular hormone. A hormone can have an effect only on those tissues that contain receptors specific for that hormone. Often, one segment of the hormone molecule has a strong chemical affinity for the receptor, while another segment is responsible for initiating the hormone-specific action. Thus, hormonal actions are not general throughout the body, but rather are aimed at specific target tissues. A hormone receptor complex activates a chain of specific chemical responses within the cells of the target tissue to complete hormonal action. This action may be the result of the activation of enzymes within the target cell, interaction of the hormone receptor complex with the deoxyribonucleic acid in the nucleus of the cell, and consequent stimulation of protein synthesis, or a combination of both. It may even result in the secretion of another hormone. The amounts of hormone are maintained by feedback mechanisms that depend on interactions between the endocrine glands, the blood levels of the various hormones, and activities of the target organ. Hormones act by regulating cell metabolism, by accelerating, slowing, or maintaining enzyme activity in receptor cells. Hormones control growth and development, metabolic rates, sexual rhythm, and reproduction. Types of endocrine glands. The endocrine glands are 1 pituitary gland, 1 thyroid gland, 4 parathyroid glands, 2 adrenal or suprarenal glands, 1 pancreas or insulet of Langerhans, 1 pineal gland or body, 1 thymus gland, the gonads, i.e., 2 ovaries in female and 2 testes in male. Endocrine glands and their specific characteristics. The pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, or hypophysis, is located near the base of the brain. It secretes many hormones and controls the functions of other endocrine glands. The production and release of the various pituitary hormones are regulated in turn by small peptide-releasing hormones from the hypothalamus of the brain. The pituitary gland has both anterior and posterior portions, with each secreting separate hormones, meaning different functions. The hormones of the anterior pituitary gland are the thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, which stimulates the growth of the thyroid gland. The luteinizing, LH, which is a gonadotropic hormone necessary for increasing the production of progesterone in females and testosterone in males. The follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, which is a gonadotropic hormone necessary for increasing the production of estrogen and maturation of ovum in females, the production of sperm in males. The adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which increases the secretion of steroid hormones by adrenal gland. It helps in regulating sleep patterns. And lastly, prolactin. The functions of the anterior pituitary gland hormones are as follows. 1. The growth hormone regulates growth of body tissues, especially the long bones and skeletal muscles. The TSH stimulates the growth of the thyroid gland. The LH is a gonadotropic hormone necessary for increasing the production of progesterone in females and testosterone in males. The FSH is a gonadotropic hormone necessary for increasing the production of estrogen and maturation of ovum in females and production of sperm in males. The ACTH increases the secretion of steroid hormones by adrenal gland. It helps in regulating sleep patterns. Oversecretion of the hormones of the anterior pituitary gland causes gigantism, that is, very tall people, and acromegaly, coarse facial features, enlarged tongue, and large hands and feet. Undersecretion causes dwarfism, lack of sexual development, obesity, and sterility. The hormones of the posterior pituitary glands are 1. Prolactin, especially in pregnancy, stimulates milk production. 2. Oxytocin, acts upon the mammary gland of female mammals to cause milk release or expulsion in response to suckling by the young. It also stimulates the uterus to contract at the end of pregnancy to aid expulsion of the offspring. Number 3. Antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin reduces urine output by increasing the permeability to water of the distal convoluted and collecting tubules of the nephrons of the kidneys. It also constricts blood vessels and raises blood pressure. The pineal gland. It produces melatonin, which contributes to regulation of circadian rhythm of the body, including sleep activity cycles. It also hinders the growth and development of sex organs before puberty. The thyroid gland. It produces thyroxine and triiodothyronine, which increases metabolic rates, facilitates growth and maturation. Oversecretion of thyroid hormones causes thyrotoxicosis, while undersecretion causes cretinism in children and myxoderma in adults. The parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland derives their name from the fact that in mammals they are embedded within the thyroids. They produce parathormone, which is essential for life, as they regulate the concentration of calcium ions in blood and other extracellular fluids. Oversecretion causes reabsorption of calcium from the bones, thereby raising blood calcium levels, hypercalcemia. If calcium is too low, the animal goes into tetanic convulsion and dies, whereas if calcium is too high, abnormal calcification and stone formation can occur. Parathyroid hormone is a protein hormone that raises the blood calcium level, paracalcemia. The hormone acts upon bones to cause the release of calcium and phosphate, and upon the kidney to increase the reabsorption or conservation of calcium and excretion of phosphate. The adrenal cortex. It produces steroid hormones from cholesterol. The hormones that it produces are collectively called corticosteroids, which are glucocorticosteroids, mineralocorticoids, and sex hormones. Glucocorticoids are essential for life, regulating metabolism and responses to stress. Mineralocorticoids produce aldosteroids, which maintains the water and electrolytes of the body by stimulating sodium reabsorption and potassium excretion. The sex hormone produces androgen, similar to the ones produced by the testes. Oversecretion of glucocorticoids causes Cushing syndrome, characterized by painful deposits of fat on the face, moon face, and muscle wasting as a result of excessive protein catabolism among them. Undersecretion of glucocorticoid causes glucose uptake and muscle weakness. Oversecretion of mineralocorticoids results in failure of the kidney to regulate the level of sodium, potassium, and water excretion. Excessive secretion of mineralocorticoids will cause excessive reabsorption of sodium and water and excessive excretion of potassium. The adrenal medulla. The gland produces epinephrine and norepinephrine. The effects of these hormones are similar to the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. They increase the heart rate, increases the blood pressure, divert blood to essential organs, increase the metabolic rate, and dilate the pupils. This prepares the body for emergencies. The effects of oversecretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine include deposition of fat in the lumen of blood vessels, hypertension, excess blood sugar, nervousness, etc. The pancreas. It produces insulin and glucagon. Insulin is required for reducing the blood levels of stored nutrients, especially glucose, after reabsorption. The hormone increases the entry of glucose into cells, as well as increasing the storage of fats. Glucagon increases conversion of stored fat to glucose. Undersecretion of insulin causes diabetes mellitus. The gonads. Probably the best studied endocrine glands are the gonads, the testes of the male and the ovaries of the female. The gonads are regulated by the follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the adrenal hypophysis. In the male, follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates the initiation of sperm formation by the testis tubules, and luteinizing hormone acts on the nearby Leydig cells of the testes to produce testosterone, the principal male sex hormone. Testosterone acts by a paracrine mechanism to cause the final maturation of sperm and by way of the blood to stimulate development of the male reproductive system and secondary sex characteristics. In females, the follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates the growth of the ovarian follicle at the beginning of each reproductive cycle. As the follicle grows, they produce estradiol. Increasing levels of estradiol causes feedback inhibition of gonadotropin-releasing hormone. High levels of estradiol also have an unusual positive feedback effect upon the hypothalamus and adenohypophysis to cause a surge in the secretion of luteinizing hormone, which results in ovulation. The corpus luteum, a remnant of the ovulated follicle, produces both estradiol and the second major female sex hormone, progesterone. Progesterone is necessary for the maintenance of a quiescent uterus during pregnancy, and both estrogen and progesterone are important in the regulation of the female reproductive cycle. Estradiol is also essential for the growth and maturation of the female reproductive system and secondary sex characteristics. In both males and females, the sex hormones affect reproductive behavior. The pineal gland. It contains light-sensitive receptors to regulate the body in response to changes in light exposure. The pineal gland produces the hormone melatonin, which regulates daily cycles and rhythms, such as sleeping and waking patterns. Melatonin is secreted in the dark hours of the night. As a result, during the longer nights of the winter months, the pineal produces and secretes melatonin in higher levels than in summer months. The thymus. The thymus secretes the hormone thymosin, which stimulates maturation of cells used by the immune system to defend the body against diseases. The thymus is particularly large in children, but shrinks with the onset of puberty. Hormones can also be classified into three categories, which are protein hormones, are composed of strings or combination of amino acids. Steroid hormones are composed not of amino acids but of 4 interconnecting rings of carbon atoms. Different steroid hormones vary in number and kinds of atoms attached to the rings. Amine hormones are compounds composed of single amino acid, hence their alias monoamine hormones. Study session summary. In this study session, you have learnt that the endocrine system is a body controlling system composed of a group of glands that maintain a stable internal environment by producing chemical regulatory substances called hormones. The endocrine system includes the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal or suprarenal gland, pancreas, ovary, testis/testicle, thymus gland, and pineal gland. End of study session 7. Thanks for listening.